Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Corey Pierce, and I'm the Marketing Director at Turn Zero, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar titled The Case for Billable Customer Success. Before we get started, I'd like to remind you that we are recording this session. A link to the recording will be available approximately 24 hours after this webinar. Throughout the presentation, you are welcome to submit your questions via the question and answer box, and our staff will try and answer them as we go. We will also address as many questions as we can during the Q&A portion of this webinar. Now, I'm pleased to introduce you to today's presenter, Mikael Blaisdell. Mikael is a recognized leading voice on strategy, process, people, and technology of customer success. His ongoing research and leadership of over 33,000 member worldwide customer success community on LinkedIn provide a unique global view of the development of the customer success profession and market. As founder and executive director of the Customer Success Association and publisher of the Customer Success Central, Mikael's vision and commentary about how companies can optimize customer relationships is read in over 160 countries around the world. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mikael.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks, Corey, indeed. Let's see if the technology is working right now. Okay, here we go. Today we're going to talk about a core aspect of what I've been calling the Profitability Blueprint. It's a roadmap for customer success as a source of strategically significant profitability for the company. And the Profitability Blueprint is the focus of the Customer Success Con events in Denver, London, Seattle, Berkeley, and in Boston. In those events, I talk about why connecting profitability to customer success groups is so vital and what customer success teams worldwide are doing in this regard. And then the session presenters talk specifically about how to do it. I decided to focus on the Profitability Blueprint for Customer Success Con after one too many conversations with people that I consider customer success masters with a pedigree as long as your arm, unquestioned competence, but who got laid off, all too often along with their entire team, when the CEO said, I think there's another way to do this, or I don't really think we need to have a senior executive dedicated to this. Or these were people who looked at their situation and discovered that there was no way to win, that they couldn't practice their profession to their own standards, and therefore they left. These are not isolated cases. It's all too common, and it's been going on for years. And I thought it's time for a change. The Profitability Blueprint is about income streams, renewals, upsells, cross-sells, sales of additional products, expansion, all the value that comes after the initial contract is signed for, subscription software company, for example. The core aspect we're going to talk about today is billable customer success, and I'm very much in favor of it. In my opinion, it's a win all around. It's good for the customer success group. It's good for the customers. It's good for the company. And even if you never actually offer billable customer success products to your customers, the process of preparing to do so has some significant benefits. So let's take a look at that. First, when you set out to offer billable customer success products, it necessarily clarifies the customer success role itself. And it does so for the company and for the customer. And it gives you a foundation for making defensible decisions for customer success budgeting, for such things as you need to develop a strategy as to which conversations with the customers take place human to human, and which ones you can move over to what I call self-success, or others call tech success or tech touch, knowledge bases and videos and in-app messaging and all of that. Which things can you do there, and which things do you need to do with a human? But if you've got that foundation of a good budgeting plan, you have a basis for making decisions. Now, this is not going to be staffing levels, of course, is another one. That's a big one everybody struggles with when they talk about scaling. How do I add people? How many people do I need? Well, of course, the perennial question on the customer success forum is, what's the proper ratio between customers and CSMs? the work to establish billable customer success and get your finances in order gives you a foundation for that. Now, billable customer success is not something I'm talking about as an instant cure. There's a number of factors in it that needs to be identified and understood before a company sets out to prepare a billable customer success product. Some of this stuff goes back years, while others are more recent developments. So let's take a look at that. We're talking customer success and revenue, and there has been a sea change in this area over the past 5 years. Now, my source on this is for 10 years, I've been doing the Customer Success Standards Initiative research. It's a survey, we do it every year, that examines all aspects of strategy, process, people, and technology of customer success. Every participant in that survey has to identify themselves. It's all kept very confidential. I never reveal anybody. But it's very useful to me to know which company responded which way, so that if I need to, I can go back and do some interviews. 5 years ago, in fact, more than 5 years ago, I began asking about, is your customer success group connected with any kind of revenue stream or profitability? Do you have any kind of responsibility in that area? Is it, owned or shared or whatnot? 5 years ago, there were no customer success groups reporting any connection to revenue at all. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that there actually were none. It's just all the respondents to the survey said that they were not. And all the people that I interviewed, because I do this on an ongoing basis through the year worldwide, I never could find anybody that said, oh yeah, we're responsible for revenue. And then it began to change, and it began to change pretty fast. Last year, we got to the point where less than 20% said that they had no connection to revenue. So that's the sea change from 0 5 years ago to now over 80% of the responding customer success groups say that they have some connection to owned or shared revenue streams. Digging a little deeper, 28% of the respondents from this year's survey report getting credit for income from selling customer success services. Now, if you look at that, this is the 2019 survey. I did a little digging of those that said that they were getting credit for this. I went out to their websites and I looked at how they were defining those customer success services. And a lot of them it looked like they were selling support. It was a fancy new name for for selling basic support contracts, access to the support resources. So, but some of them were not. Some of them were out and out, this is billable customer success. Another factor I looked at, which I also considered very significant, was of the respondents, only less than 7% of them said that their group performance was measured on a P&L basis. So that tells me we have a long way to go. We're moving strongly in the direction. We're connecting more and more to revenue overall in our companies, but we're not getting measured on a P&L basis. Another factor that popped up, I've been talking with a lot of recruiters, and as you might imagine, I get calls all the time on this area. And so I ask about them, what are you people looking for? How are you qualifying this? And an interesting comment popped up. They tell me that the VCs, the venture capitalists who are looking for people for customer success groups in their portfolio companies, when they talk to the recruiters, they're insisting that candidates have a professional services management role in their backgrounds. Now that tells me that the VCs are now expecting that customer success is not only to pay for itself, but also to be a source of profit. So let's look on to billable customer success services itself. It's not a new thing. Companies have been offering this for a number of years. And what they do is they will bundle customer success in for their big customers and offer it as a billable option for smaller companies. It's not a new thing. But what I looked at that and realized they've never taken it very seriously. It's never been strongly marketed. as such. It's an option. If you want it, great, buy it. Otherwise, you know, it's there for you if you ever want it, but they don't really push it. The reality that we have to look at is there ain't no such thing as free customer success, and there never has been. There's only bundled or unbundled, and the standard has been, of course, bundled. You get the services along with your subscription. So what I look at and think about that, and then I stumbled on to a very interesting article that Jennifer Sutton, who's the Senior Director of Global Customer Success Strategy for Oracle, she wrote a recent article about customer success and tattoos. There's more in common than you may suspect. It's on LinkedIn, and there's a link to it at the end of the slides here, so you can get that. But she looked at it, and she came up and she said the problems that she sees are, first, this is being driven by increased pressure to reduce customer success costs. And the problem there means less budget to hire top talent, and that means larger customers to customer success manager ratios. I agree with her completely. And part of that's because the most expensive customer success management talent is domain expertise, the knowledge of the customer's business to the degree that you can speak with authority as a trusted advisor. And it's the most expensive, and it's the critical factor in finding people to provide billable customer success services. Another point that she identified is that there's growing pressure on customer success groups to increase customer spend, and that muddies the trusted advisor relationship for CSMs. In the worldwide customer success community, this single point often approaches a religious war between those who think the customer success managers ought to be commissioned and those who don't. I'm amongst the don't category. And for exactly the reason that she points out, if not done properly, it can muddy that trusted advisor role that's so important to the CSMs and to the customers. And the third point that she looks at is that the growing awareness of customer success costs moves teams to focus on customers with higher spend or expansion potential, and that leaves other customers underserved. So what else is going on with this? Here's where we get into the stuff I talked about that goes back years, and I'm talking 10 years or more. And the first and foremost is the lack of an effective definition for customer success, a clean understanding of what the role is and what it isn't. And you see this from senior management, you see this in sales and other departments, and you see this in the customers, this confusion over what's customer success, what do they do? I did a survey not long ago looking for customers who had worked with customer success managers. And I don't have enough results to show any real trends there. But as always with surveys, some of the comments that I got were fascinating, and some of them, frankly, were very scathing. It showed that the customers, the people working with a CSM, didn't understand what the CSM was supposed to do for them. They had no clue. Senior management says, maybe we need this, maybe we don't. If we're going up for funding, yes, we need this because our VC masters will require it. Otherwise, you get sales and other departments saying, what is it that customer success people do? And customers, as I noted, are a little unaware of what's going on with that always. There's some other things that get involved here. If you look out on LinkedIn for the ever-increasing numbers of customer success job postings, you'll notice that they're often copied. One company will go out there, copy a job description, change a few words, and put it back out there as their own. When I talk to recruiters, I get told that HR people, one of their constant problems is HR people who have no idea how to qualify candidates for customer success roles. This points back at this lack of an effective definition. And another factor, also going back many years, is a horrific turnover in customer success executive ranks and to a somewhat lesser degree in CSM ranks as well. So all of these are problems that I think would be necessarily effectively addressed in creating billable customer success. Our challenges for this situation, what it costs us to have this fuzziness about the definition and uncertainty about what we're actually doing and the value we're providing, is it's a lot of lost revenues and profitability for companies. It's money left lying on the table. It's churn. It's a hidden cost of executive turnover. It's obliterated and then restarted customer success groups. It's confusion. And as I said, I think that the beginnings of the solution is establishing customer success as a separately billable product, of defining it. But to do that, and this is where I get into where I say that it's best for you, even if you never actually do it, it's because the customer needs to know exactly what value customer success will bring to them and how it's going to be done. The company needs to know exactly what return they're getting from the customer success groups. And therefore, to my mind, for customer success executives, the goal is to establish a direct and necessary connection to strategically significant levels of profitability. And there's some important words in there. Building that foundation will require two core points. As I said, the customer and the company needs to know exactly what they're getting. But let's go back and look at that goal for CS execs. The first one is direct. A clear link between the group activities, the CSM activities, and the increase in profit. In other words, if A, then B. Another word is owned. In my surveys, I've talked about owned, which where you get all the credit, and shared, which is you share the credit for the revenue with some other department. To my mind, shared is a maybe. It's not to be relied on. The key word in that one is necessary. Without you and the customer success group, there is no income or profitability stream. It doesn't, it leaves no doubt in anybody's mind. So what might that look like? The actual customer success billable product. Well, for the customer, it's going to start with an individual customer success plan. A lot of companies are already doing this. In fact, I would venture that my surveys show most companies are doing this. However, they're only doing it for their largest customers. They don't do it for everybody. But over the past 5 years, I've seen a growing number of companies that are saying, this is standard practice. We do this for everybody. Now, of course, a lot of this is going to depend on the nature of your product and the vertical that you're in and all of that. But I would say that the individual customer success plan is a vital aspect. Moving from that plan, you give a clear identification of the dollars and cents value that the customer will receive. This is, although I wouldn't call it selling, but it's a necessary aspect of sales. You have to let them know what they're buying in such a way that they want to buy it. And that includes the price of the service and the return that you're going to get from buying it. All of these things are necessary for the customer success group to know and to be able to talk about easily. Well, let's look at for the company. Product definition, billable customer success for the company means you have a business plan for the customer success group. You have clear identification of the costs and the projected profits for all customer success activities. Now, that's a challenge. I have been asking for that for years in interviews. Do you know what the cost of your operation is? Do you know what the standard categories of integration? Where's your process data? Where's your durations? Where is your volume? Where is your importance and the cost of those activities? And very few people have it. Well, if you're going to come up with a billable product for customer success, you're going to have that. You're going to have to be able to say, this is what we're offering, this is what we're doing, this is what it costs, these are the pieces to the puzzle. Yeah, sorry, I was behind there. I can't emphasize that too much. Clear identification of the costs of providing the service and the projected profits. This is where the science of customer success really shows itself. These are things that you have to know. Okay, I have been making the case in general, and I realized this is, there's no way you can cover all of this in a given day or even a given 2 days session. We spend an afternoon on it at Customer Success Con events, but even then we say this is only the start. There's an ongoing conversation to this, and it will take you time, and it will take a lot of work. We do the conversations in the forum. We do the conversations with the presenters of various aspects of this and people that were there who want more information on it and guidance. More materials will have to be developed on this in order to make it a reality. But as I said, I think it's worth the trip. For the customer success group, it forces you to identify, to dig deeply into, frankly, some uncomfortable topics, but necessary topics. Knowing your costs, knowing the value of the services you provide, knowing the effect of the services you provide. What's the trajectory of a candidate for a Tier 1 customer status? How do you take them from the day they sign on with you all the way through to where they're, a partner, a Tier 1 customer for you? Those steps need to be known, and the things that the customer success group needs to accomplish need to be part of that particular plan. For the customer, of course, it gives them, this is what you're going to expect. This is where the value comes in for you. You start here. This is your role in the project. These are the things that you have to do in order to reach these benefits. But the benefits are clearly defined. This circles back to what I was talking about a minute ago on domain expertise. If you are, for example, if you're running a medical office practice, your customer success manager needs to know everything there is to know about running medical practices so that they can talk to you and say, these are the things that you need to do, and these are why you need to do them. That they're an expert in medical office management as well as in the product that is going into the customer. For the company, it clarifies the benefits, and it gives you a clear access to the kinds of authorities that you need to where you can work with sales and review the deals in the pipeline so that you say, no, that one really doesn't fit our model, because you have the foundation for it. You have the financial foundation over the long term to say this is why this prospect doesn't fit our model, and therefore we probably should not do this. You get to make decisions about, as I said, self-success. Where do you put in? What's the benefit of a knowledge base? What percentage of the workload can be done safely through that without affecting the quality of the customer relationship? Staffing levels. How many CSMs do you really need? What's the utilization rate for them? What's the billing rate for them? And therefore, what are the worth of these various activities that they do? If you look at the role of a typical CSM, they do a lot of things. They do voice of the customer. They do customer advocacy. They do research. They do all kinds of things. But what's the value of those, and how do you prioritize those? This is why I say, even if you never actually offer billable customer success services, the basic work, the preparation work in order to do so, if you decided to, is going to tell you an awful lot about your operation that you need to know. So this is why I'm very strongly in favor of it, and will continue to do. So I'd like to go on to questions, but before I do that, let me talk a little bit about the follow-up resources. There's, of course, as Corey mentioned at the beginning, the Customer Success Forum on LinkedIn. We have over 33,000 members worldwide, and the conversations are fascinating, and you can learn a lot from various people. How do you do this? Why do you do this? What's important? You can join us for the Customer Success Con events. We have one coming up in Denver on June 4th. The next one after that is in London on the 10th of September. Seattle is the 28th of October, and Berkeley is the 18th of November, and then we'll be back in Boston next April. There's going to be some increasing resources of the Customer Success Association on our website, and our publication, Customer Success Central. There's several articles about the Profitability Blueprint and different aspects of it. If you have questions that we don't get to today, then let's go. There's my email address. Please feel free to send them. I'll do my best. The better approach to that is probably post the questions in the forum, because then you're exposed to more input than just mine. But if you don't want to, if you're a little sensitive about asking a question with your company name on it, send it to me and I'll post it for you, or I'll answer it myself if I possibly can. And I do recommend that article that Jennifer Sutton did, Tattoos and Paid Customer Success, More in Common Than You Think, particularly the line where she talks about good tattoos cost and cheap tattoos aren't very good. I think there's, even if you're not interested in tattoos, as I'm not, that's still something to look at. So at this point, let me pass it back to Corey, and let's see what questions are coming in.
Sorry, I was just on mute there. Thank you so much for that presentation, Michael. And it was a very interesting topic, and one that I think is actually new for a lot of us. So that's great. At this time, I'd like to invite the audience to please go ahead and submit their questions via the question and answer box in your webinar console. And we've had a few that came in already, so let's get started. Our first question is, what type of activities do you categorize as customer success? Where is the line between customer success, support, and sales?
Oh, excellent. That's a great question. Customer success, the mission of customer success is to increase sustainable, proven value for both the customer and the company. Looking at the customer, it means you identify the opportunities for increasing their profits, their productivity, and you work with them directly to attain those. The difference between support is break fix, and I come out of 25 years of background in customer support operations and strategy and technology. The essence of it has been break fix. Something breaks, you fix it. Customer success is, let's look at the customer where they are, lay out a customer success plan to take them to where they want to be, and make suggestions to them as to what's possible for it, and then work with them ongoing to get them there. The difference between customer success and sales is quite easy. Salespeople are hunters. Every salesperson I've ever met, the thing that they most want to do is they want to be in front of a customer making a sale, a new customer. They're hunters. They're the fighter pilots of the business world. And where I find you customer success people can work very effectively with them is if you do like a controller for a fighter operation. You say, okay, out there's a target. This is what the target looks like. This is the questions they will ask, the benefits they want to receive, their timetable. This is what a tier 1 customer in the making looks like for us. Here's how you recognize them. Here's how you talk to them. And here's how you go for it. So the salespeople go out and they close. And at this point, the customer success team needs to say, thank you very much. We'll take over from here. Now, about this new prospect over here. So I know a lot of customer success groups are getting involved earlier and earlier in the process. They're serving as sales engineers. And there's a particularly good advantage to that, because one of our challenges as a community, as a profession, is getting access to the information. And sales doesn't always document all the players and all the things that happen during the sales cycle. Well, if you were there as a sales engineer, you don't need their documentation because you were there to see it and you've already been keeping your own records. So it's a matter of focus. Sales makes the sale. Customer success takes over after that and runs everything from there.
Awesome. Thank you for that clarification. Our second question is, what is your advice to companies who haven't ever billed for customer success to start introducing the concept to existing customers? How are you able to get clients excited about paying for something they're used to getting for quote unquote free?
Well, first of all, there's the definition of it. You work with I would advise, start with a small group of your customers and really dig in to analyze what they want. I mean, classic thing we used to do in the old support days is send them what we call the zero invoice. You invoice them for the services that they had received. You zero out the invoice so they're not actually paying anything for it, but it still documents what you did and the value of it and the expected return. Similar thing would work well here. Work with a small group of customers to define the plans, to define the values, to test the market, and then once you've got the buy-in from them, then what you do at that point is broaden the game.
Awesome. I like that idea of the zero invoice. That's a good one. Our next question is, what challenges should we anticipate with trying to transition from non-billable to a billable model?
Oh, there's going to be a lot of them. First and foremost is customer success in many ways has sort of just grown up. It started off usually as ad hoc churn fighter groups. So you've got all of these expectations and people who think that they know what it is, and it surprises them when they get told, well, no, actually we're doing more than that. The key to it is having the data. When you want to work with sales, for example, to stop sales that should not have been done, problem customers, the earlier you manage to get rid of those or to avoid ever making them, the better. But you can't just sit down with the vice president of sales and go, I don't like that prospect, we're not going to sell to them, because it's just not, that's not going to happen at all. What you need to be able to do is to talk to them about this particular prospect doesn't really fit our model. Here's the data from past scenarios where it's cost us money to have done a sale like this. Now, let's see if we can improve this deal so that it fits our model more. I first learned of this from Catherine Blackmore way back when she was Vice President of Customer Success at Badgeville. And she did this weekly. But she said, you have to have the data. You've got to walk in there knowing what you're talking about and be able to show it in dollars and cents terms, or otherwise you won't have the credibility. The same is true for others. Doesn't it make sense to not market to prospects that are not really a good fit for your product? And when you're talking about doing new features, doesn't it make sense to have the data about what your customers are actually asking for, your existing customer base, and prioritize that? But the key to all of it, again, is having the data to be able to prove your case. And this comes out of the years of support. I'm very confident that you know the answers to this. Your instinct tells you, no, this is not a good deal for us. This shouldn't be done. But your instincts are not going to be good enough. You have to have the data to back up your case. So that will take care of a lot of issues as you reinvent yourself, reorient, redefine who you are and what you do in dollars and cents terms.
Awesome. I think that makes a lot of sense. Our next question is, what are your thoughts on breaking out certain pieces of the CS function and only charging for making certain aspects of them billable? For example, implementation or technical training.
Oh, absolutely. More and more companies are starting to, and this is another question I asked in surveys, are starting to A, move professional services into the customer success organization, and B, to charge for them. This is nothing new. Back in the old traditional perpetual license on-premise days, when I was doing advising customer support clients about purchases of case management systems, knowledge bases, phone switches, and all of that, I would tell them, you have to realize something up front, which is you can expect to pay somewhere in between 2 times and 10 times the license fees in your implementation costs. And the companies are betting that it's going to be more. So if you don't make up your mind what you want first and you make a lot of changes, you're going to be towards the 10 times. This has enormous profit potential to it. And companies aren't slow to pick up on that. Initially, when SaaS came out, they said, that's not the purpose of SaaS. It needs to be quick and dirty. You need to be able to just flip a few buttons and get into it and get running. Well, yes, you do. But to fully implement it, to roll it out throughout your organization, takes some guidance, and that guidance has a lot of value to it. So yes, I would think it's a great idea to break off pieces of implementation and to do this, to offer specialized training. Perfect example, power users, the ones who really know how to use a product and make it do all kinds of things. Customer success needs to have a community of power users and to have training programs to create more. That way you can go to a customer and you can say, look, this is what you're using right now. These are the benefits. This is the ROI you're getting right now from what you're using. We would suggest that you consider using these other functions that may be a little more complex, and we have a training program that will train your people to do those. That's another source of revenue. But again, it's selling value to the customer, and I think that's the key to it.
Great. Our next question is, would you say that this required skills change at all if you're explicitly charging for customer success when you're hiring?
Yes, because domain expertise becomes absolutely vital. You have to be able to speak to the customer with a voice of authority and advise them as a trusted advisor. You can train people in your product. I mean, you've got technical training groups that do exactly that with your customers. You can train people in soft skills, in how to manage a relationship with a customer. Those are trainable things, and they don't take very long to instill. But acquiring that voice of authority does take a long time. Example, I can walk into a customer support department, ask a few questions, and the folks there know that I know what's going on in that department because I did it for so many years. Same thing is true of a customer success group, of course. But you don't acquire that, in 2 months, 6 months. Frankly, you don't acquire it in a year. It's going to take longer than that, and that's why it's so expensive. But to have it, to be able to speak to the customer so that they hear you, you're going to have to pay for that and justify it.
Awesome. Our next question is, what are some suggestions on recovering clients who do not have data to support ROI to prove value?
Take your CFO to lunch, or their CFO to lunch, actually. ROI is a challenging thing for a lot of people. I was told years ago by an enterprise sales guy in the CRM field, long time. He said, the most terrifying moment in the entire sales process is the headquarters visit when you're sitting down with their senior management team, including their CFO, and you present your ROI figures. And you've got your fingers crossed and you're praying that nobody will say, but that's not how we do business. Those figures are invalid. He says, because if you get past that moment, they're never going to talk about ROI again, so you're home free. Well, we don't have that luxury. We have to be able to talk ROI to customers because we're selling value. It's not about the technology. Technology is the table stakes to get into the game. It's the value, the continuing sustainable proven value. And if we can't describe that so that our customers get it, if we can't work with them so that they really get it and understand it, we're going to lose. I mean, after all, what you really want is a customer that will say to a prospect of yours, hey, since we started working with XYZ, our profits are up 30%, in the last 6 months or something. You can't buy that. You have to earn it. And the way you earn it is all the discomfort of working with a customer to identify exactly how your product makes their life easier and put a dollars and cents value on that.
Awesome. Our next question is, who should sell new customer success products? Would that be the CSM themselves, or would sales step in?
This is one of our long-standing problems. Salespeople want to sell to new customers, and they want big license deals. That's what, and this is what their commission plan is based on to encourage them to do. Add-on stuff of services, typically, that's not their forte. And you run into situations where they actually want to give away the cost of services in order to get the license sales because, of course, that's what they get commissioned on. The commissions on the add-on services aren't quite as big, and therefore they're not of as much interest to them. So my recommendation is use your sales team as hunters. It's what they want to do. It's what they're best at. Get them to get the new customers in, and then you develop that relationship with the customer success group. Now, does it mean the customer success managers themselves do the selling? Probably not. I mean, some of them can. You have to, again, this is where you have to be careful about this. But would you have a team in the CS group that works on expansion sales and sales of additional products? I would recommend that route, because these are the people, again, with domain expertise that will be able to talk to the customer and say, for example, I noticed that you're not using this area of the product feature set, and I have other customers that are, and they're getting a lot of value for it. So help me understand why this doesn't seem workable for you or of interest for you. And in that kind of a context, they can work with the customer to introduce them to what's going on and to bring them up to speed to get it implemented and in use throughout their organization. The consulting fees to do that, when you can show the value of this functionality or this advantage of the product, then you can say, well, okay, it's going to cost this much to get you up to speed, and your return is going to be X. That typically takes somebody that's closer to the customer on an ongoing basis than the sales guys who worked with them intensively when they were making the sale, and then want to go away to work intensively with other new customers. Bringing them back in when they've been out of the picture for a while doesn't make much sense to me. I've seen it work for some companies. In general, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense when it comes to upsells and expansion. Our next question is, can you comment further on how to structure a billable model for lower revenue, self-success clients versus high revenue, high touch tier 1 clients?
Well, that's going to be, again, once you've established your basic cost structure of what your utilization of your customer success managers is, what the billing rate is. So if you devote X number of hours to a particular project, the cost of that project, and then you figure out who's going to pay for it. Is this something that a lower value customer who's not as far up the adoption chain is going to find of interest? Maybe not. So selling it to them is probably not something you want to do. Again, these are things that you can use to set your strategies. Which things do I do through technology? Which things do I do human to human? Where's the return on it? Where's the return for the company? Where's the return for the customer? Again, start with a small group. Figure out, okay, let's analyze some of our tier 1 customers and see, is there something else we could be providing to them that they would find of enough value that they'd be willing to pay for it? So you start working that way, and you gather data. What works? What doesn't work? What's the return? How long does it take? All that kind of fun stuff. And then once you have that beginnings of data, then you ask yourself the question, is this something we can roll out to our lower value customers? Is this something that they will buy? Can we condense it and automate it so that it's available to them and it doesn't cost us a sort of a one-to-many approach? It's not a one-on-one thing. Can we do it on a cost-effective basis that way? These are things that you're going to have to learn over time as you play around with this, as you experiment with this, as you gather your data on it.
Perfect. I think that will close up our Q&A portion of this webinar. And at this time, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us and remind you that we will be sending out a recording tomorrow afternoon of this webcast. And at the end, when you go to exit, a survey will pop up. We'd appreciate it if you could take a minute before logging off just to complete that survey to provide your feedback. And again, thank you everyone for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Are you still there, Corey?